We're going to be taking a look at two Optimus Prime figures, and I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about them, from the good all the way to the bad, and which one you should possibly get. One is a knockoff of the Studio Series 102 Optimus Prime, which has been highly requested for me to do. Wait a minute, that's not right. And the other figure is a knockoff of the Lemontree Optimus Prime.
Lemon-stealing whores.
And it's the Baiwei Commander Cybertron.
Let them come.
Both can be found on the Show's e-store. We're going to start by taking a look at the OP-01. This figure is an amazing copy of the original 102. I'll do a comparison later, but first, let's take a look at this figure. It looks absolutely amazing, just like you. And the plastic quality on this is pretty on par with Hasbro figures. The colors on this figure look amazing. They are different from the original figure. We'll see there is no Autobot insignia because this is a knockoff. Now, I know Baiwei is coming out with their knockoff of the 102, which also has a better truck bed, but in my experience, and as you'll see with the second figure in this review, the quality of their figures isn't the best. Let's start by taking a look at the head sculpt. It looks really good. You have silver paint applications with some blue eyes. Rest of the sculpt looks really amazing, just like the original. A little bit of detail above the shoulder pieces, some nice looking smokestacks. Once again, no Autobot insignia. Chest piece is looking great. Looks like there are some blemishes on my copy of the figure. Some clear plastic windows for the windshield. Looks like I do have a bit of a scratch over here as well. The abdomen area, we're having a really nice sculpt to it like the original. The crotch piece is silver painted die-cast metal with some yellow paint applications. The rest of the arms are copied really well, and you get that nice detail on the arms. This piece is a bit loose and pops out quite a bit. Coming down to the legs, some really nice designs going on all throughout, just looking super amazing in my opinion. And here's a look at the side of the legs, looking really good. Turning the figure over to the back, this back section looking really good, just like the original. And here's a closer look at the rest of the back of the figure. Overall, a good one-to-one copy of the original. But now let's compare it to the original, because you will see some differences. Starting off with the head sculpt. I found the mouthpiece on the original to be done a lot better than the mouthpiece on the knockoff. We will also see that the eyes are much smaller on the knockoff than they are on the original. And the last major thing I noticed, I'm not sure if it's because of the way the paint is done, but the forehead piece on the original seems to be bigger than the forehead piece on the knockoff. But like I said, it could just be because of the paint application. And now the colors on both the figures are different. It's really hard to tell because they matched it almost perfectly. The color of red is different on both of the figures. The difference in the blues is definitely a lot more noticeable. And another major color difference that I really like about the knockoff is that instead of this gray color the original has, you get this really nice silver paint application. It makes the figure look so much better. That is one thing about the original that I did not like. Just these grays just didn't seem too great to me, but it looks so much better like this. Now, from what I've read online, some copies of this figure do not have this silver paint application. Another thing I noticed about color is if we turn the figures over to the back, this back section on the original is painted red, while I believe this seems to be just molded plastic, along with this being red as well. The knockoff pretty much comes with the same exact accessories. You get the sword, once again, copied over nicely, and then his blaster. Comparing with the original, as you can pretty much see, it is exactly the same. It's hard to see on camera, but there is a minor color difference between the two. And then the original has these blue pegs.
Did someone say pegging?
Comparing both of the blasters, once again, as you can see, they're almost exactly the same. We will notice the inside is different, but the major difference is the color. I like the color on the knockoff much better than the original. Now for articulation, the joints on this figure are just really tight, especially the ones on the legs. It seems like with repeated movement, this one managed to get a bit looser, but it is still pretty tight. So we get up and down head movement, a full 360 rotation, arm can move out to the side, full 360 rotation there, and that is very tight. Bicep rotation, which is also tight. So you get an elbow bend here, and then since it is a double hinge joint, this can also move, but once again, it is insanely tight. There we go. You can get the hands to rotate. This can be utilized as an ab crunch. Full 360 rotation for the waist. You might hear this figure is very squeaky on the joints. The leg can move forward all the way up there, only back around there. Skirt piece can move out to the side, and then you can bring this leg out there. Some rotation over here. It sounds like this is on a ratchet joint, but if we take a look, it doesn't seem like it is. The joints are just very tight from what it seems. A knee bend, foot pivot, and back and forth foot movement. Now, before we get into this guy's transformation, we need to take a look at the Lemontree figure.
Hey, what the hell are you two doing?
This figure also looks really amazing. We'll also notice that the colors are far less saturated on this figure than they were on the previous two. The colors are also much darker. Overall, the sculpt and mold of this figure looks really good in my opinion. There is one thing I want to mention about this back piece that you guys probably won't like, but before that, I do want to mention the plastic quality on this figure doesn't feel too great. At the moment I got it out of the box and held it in my hands, it just feels a lot cheaper than the previous figures, even though it's around the same price point. This figure did come out earlier than the OP-01, and the joints are not very solid, which is not helpful for when it comes to the accessories. This one also seems to have a die-cast metal crotch piece. However, it seems like the quality is a lot cheaper. Taking a closer look at the figure's head sculpt, it is a lot like the Studio Series 38 head sculpt, and it is done very, very well. We'll also see some more detail up here at the top. Now, I do want to mention that this piece on my copy of the figure doesn't really stay down all the way. It keeps popping back up a little bit, so that is a pretty minor issue. Coming down to the chest piece, it is done very well. The blue tinted windows are a nice touch, and it does look different from the original Lemontree figure. That one did not have these parts up here at the top. The rest of the chest piece looking really good. This can open up and you get this inside. Nothing too special. This is also another look you can do if you want a more flat chest piece for this figure.
I'm not flat, right?
Detail work for the abdomen is done really well. Same sculpt as the Lemontree, except a lot of colors are missing. Coming over to the arms with a nice sculpt, some silver paint applications here, a nice smokestack, some more nice detail work for the arms on this side, as well coming down to the rest of the arms on the front, this inner side piece, and on this side. While these parts of the shoulders are similar to the Lemontree version, I noticed that these parts of the arms are not. This figure is not an exact copy of the Lemontree Optimus Prime. It is in fact a modified KO. Coming down to the rest of the legs, I really do like all the nice little detail this figure has. It really makes it stand out. And here's a look at the rest of the legs. I do like how this part is painted in silver. I don't think it was like that on the original, which I do not have, so I cannot compare it to. Now turning the figure over to the back, here is how that looks. I do like how there's some wheels hidden in here, and the wheels, by the way, they're all rubber, so that is also a plus point. Now this part on the back section of my copy of the figure has some paint spillage, which kind of sucks. Now for the thing you guys probably won't like. The instructions do say that this piece needs to come off as part of the transformation, so there is some parts forming involved. Now let's compare this figure to a knockoff of the Studio Series 38. I mainly wanted to look at the head. The head on the Commander Cybertron is a bit smaller than the head for the Studio Series 38, which this is pretty much an exact knockoff of that figure, just in a different color scheme. The rest of it design-wise, we will see a lot of differences between the two. Overall, Commander Cybertron is just a lot slimmer than the Studio Series 38, and I do like that. It brings it more on par with 102. I'll compare it to the knockoff 102 in a sec, but first let's take a look at the articulation. The head can look up and down. You get a 360 rotation. It's a little bit tight. This arm can move out there. You get a full 360 rotation there. You get a butterfly joint, arm rotation, a double hinge joint for the elbows. No hand rotation on this figure.
Pathetic.
You do get a fake ab crunch, which is utilized mainly for the transformation. Full 360 rotation. The side skirt piece can move out. You can bring the legs forward up there, all the way back there, out to the side, and then a knee bend. In addition to that, you can utilize this piece over here to swing the legs out a bit more like that. You get a rotation there. Feet are on a ball joint, so you can move them back and forth, give them a pivot, and you can hinge them in. The articulation is pretty good, but the joints are a bit too loose. As you can see right there, it doesn't feel as solid as the other knockoff. Now this KO has a pretty big flaw with this rotation. When rotating it this way, it does run into this piece, so that is something to be very wary of. Now this figure does come with a lot of accessories. Don't worry, we'll get to that comparison in a sec. You get an ion blaster, which is pretty big for the size of the figure. For some reason, instead of one big mold, it's two separate pieces that just snap together. Hopefully it stays together. However, he can barely hold it. You get a pretty nice looking axe. I do like all the designs up here. It does feel a bit flimsy though. You get two swords, which also looks really great. Once again, loving the designs on here, but it is a bit flimsy. A really cool looking holographic effects piece. This is a really neat addition to have. A really big version of his blaster. I love how this looks. And we can see if it's compatible with the 102 in a sec. You get another headpiece. I personally am not a big fan of this head sculpt, but it is done fairly well. We also do get a bunch of these that are meant to go on the wheels. This is meant to go on either one of his arms. So now you can recreate that one scene from the Bumblebee movie.
But I did him in a bit of rage.
I do love how ridiculously big this blaster is. I just don't like how this is more of an orange. It doesn't really match with the rest of the figure. And if you look at it from underneath, it kind of just falls apart. And it's not fully compatible with the 102. He does not really hold it that well. It really only goes up to like right there. But from certain angles, it could work. Now let's compare these two knockoffs side by side. Right away, you can see the vast difference in the colors between the two. There's a complete difference in saturation of the colors. Once again, they're entirely different sculpts. This one just stands out a lot more like the original 102. Head sculpts, once again, very different between the two. I think I prefer the chest and abdomen of the 102 KO. And here side by side, you can see all the similarities and the differences between the two figures. You can see a difference in the smokestacks and details on the arms. Abdomen detail looks much different, and pretty much the rest of the figure. They're entirely different sculpts, so they're gonna look different. I do kind of prefer the tinted blue windows on this one. Now to transform the Studio Series KO, the first thing I like to do is open... Oh. That wasn't supposed to happen. Can you tell this is a knockoff? Open this up, bring in the hands. Do the same thing on the other side. Close that back up. It's very stiff. Now we can open up the chest piece, which is also very stiff, by the way. Now we need to flip in the head, but you guessed it, it's very stiff, just like your mom. Come to the back of the figure, undo that. Use any tool or part separator you have. That way we can bring it out. As you can see, it is very stubborn. Now we can finally bring this in. Close in the chest piece. We're going to come to his truck wheels, and then we're going to rotate them outwards. Take his top chest piece and rotate it 180 degrees. Unfold this piece on the side of his arms. Same with the one on this side. Bring the arm up and bring that down. Rotate it this way and bring it back. Rotate this arm around. We probably should have done that earlier and bring it in. For this side, let's rotate this arm first. Bring the arm up like the other side, then bring it down. Rotate the arm down and now bring this piece in to form the other side of the truck. Bring these pieces in, and it is a little bit tough to do. Once you've done that, you should be very proud of yourself because that was a pain. Take this front section and bring it up and in. Push it into place and just make sure everything lines up and tabs into place. Take these pieces and bring them down. This is a part I always forget. Take these top bits and bring them in. Push them into place. It is a bit difficult to get it in all the way because they do need to tab into place. You know, that's good enough. Let's come to this leg and bring that up. Turn this around. Then we're gonna whoa, rotate this in. Okay, that'll happen again. Fix that, and we can do the exact same thing once again. Now we can connect the feet together. Make sure these side skirt pieces are tabbed in. Bring this part of the legs up into place over there. Same with this side. Let's readjust this, align this up, bring out the fuel tanks. These have a tendency to untab. Bring this flap down, come on this side, and bring that flap down as well. And there we have the vehicle mode for this knockoff Optimus Prime. So since it looks pretty much just like the original, all my complaints about it are the same. This back entire trailer piece looks horrendous. This top part also looks kind of off, but from this side and the front, it does look pretty good. And since this is a knockoff, a lot of the joints are super tight and a lot of the tolerances aren't going to be that great. So you might have to constantly adjust things to keep them into place. So that is an issue you'll have to deal with. And as you can see up here, I just couldn't get that piece to tab in all the way. Now those extra silver paint applications do look absolutely great on this knockoff, especially on the fuel tanks and the front grill piece. Here is the underneath of the KO. So now let's compare it to the original. Here's the vehicle mode for the official figure. And after transforming this one, I will say it was much easier to transform this than it was on this. All the tolerance and joints here work a lot better than the ones on here. A side-by-side comparison, they are the same exact size. Holding both of these in my hand, both figures do feel very solid, and they pretty much look exactly the same, except as I said earlier, I really like the silver on here, and I do think that gives this figure a bit of a plus. Now to transform this KO, come to the back and let's take that off. Open up the chest piece, flip this out, take this piece and fold it all the way in, close that back up and close the chest piece. We need to open up this flap, which can be a bit stubborn to do. Bring that out, bring in the hand, and close that back up. Same thing for the other arm. Bring the figure in like so. Take the ab pieces and bring them down on both sides of the figure. Take this piece and bring it down. Bring out this side skirt piece and flip that up all the way. Same over here on this side, bring that up. And now we can bring both of these pieces and fold them in. Rotate the figure 180 degrees. Bring that head back. And we'll bring in these shoulder pieces and bring in the arms. Same thing for the other arm. This panel of the arm needs to come out. It's a little bit tricky to do. Oh lord. And we can flip that over, and then this panel also flips over there. Come over here on this side, bring that out, and then bring this up. We're gonna come to the back of the legs, open this up, take this piece and bring it out, open that up, take this piece, and we need to shimmy it out a bit. That wasn't supposed to happen. Turn this piece around and then have it slide into there. Bring this piece down and tab it in there. Now this piece does need to tab in there, so bring that in, bring in this panel and make sure that lines up. It is a bit tricky. Once you do get it done, just repeat the process for the other side. Remember to flip this piece out. Once you finish this side, make sure these pieces are flipped back in. Now we can rotate these feet and bring them in there. There's this little peg inside this foot. We need to get it out, and it is kind of a pain to do so. Tab the feet together. Oh no, there we go. Adjust some things if you need to. Now we can finally take this front piece and flip that around. When flipping it back the other way for the robot mode, you do need to take this piece off. I haven't really tried it without parts forming yet. I'm just doing what the instructions say. And make sure everything lines up. And here is the alt mode for this Optimus Prime. And this one is very nice. I love the addition of the rubber wheels. The truck bed on here is just so clean. The silver paint applications stick out really nicely. This front top section also looks much better than the 102 and its KO. The side piece also looks very clean. And in these areas, you can see some nice truck detail. Here's a look underneath of the figure, and here's how the front looks. Not too bad looking in my opinion. I'm having trouble with some pieces not having into place. That's just going to be what happens when you get a knockoff or a bootleg. But overall, this is a very, very nice looking truck mode. Transforming this did feel a bit easier than the 102 knockoff because the joints are much looser on this, and in vehicle mode, it does feel pretty solid despite the cheap plastic quality. Now here's a comparison of these two side by side, and as you can see, the 102 is definitely longer. Here's a comparison of both of the fronts. The front on this one is also a bit bigger and taller. A comparison of both of their trailer beds. Definitely in terms of a vehicle mode, I think this one is a lot stronger than this and the original version. However, I do like the brighter colors on here. So they're all really good figures. You could get this one, yes. This one pretty cheap price, low quality plastic, but it is a pretty decent figure. This one is pretty much going to be impossible to find. And if you don't want to pay those insane reseller prices, then I would highly recommend getting this figure, or you could wait for the Baiwei release.